Welcome back to another episode of Senior Scene on your hometown station, 1430 WNAV. I'm Joshua Killian, social media producer with the Anne Arundel County Department of Aging and Disabilities, and today my guest is Patricia Dorn, Health Insurance Administrator at the Maryland Insurance Administration. Welcome to Senior Scene, Patty.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm happy to be discussing with you the vital topic of insurance.
Absolutely. Well, let's start by introducing our listeners to the Maryland Insurance Administration. Could you give us just a brief overview of the agency's mission and responsibilities?
Yeah, I can do that. So the Maryland Insurance Administration, or MIA, we're the state agency that regulates insurance in Maryland. What that means is that we license the insurers and the insurance producers to do business in Maryland. So insurance producers, those are your agents and your brokers. So they get their licenses from us. And they have to follow Maryland's laws and any federal laws. We examine their business practices to make sure that they are compliant. The Maryland Insurance Administration is responsible for monitoring the solvency of insurers. What that means is that we're making sure that they have solid investments and that they have money to pay your claims in the future. We review and we approve the policy forms that are issued to Marylanders, and we review insurance rates to make sure that the rates are not inadequate, not excessive, or unfairly discriminatory. So an insurance company needs to collect enough money to be able to pay claims in the future, but those rates cannot be excessive and they cannot discriminate. And we also investigate consumer and provider complaints and allegations of fraud. So if you have a complaint against an insurance company or an agent or a broker, you can file a complaint with us and we will investigate. As well, if you have a suspicion of insurance fraud, you can also file that with us and you can remain anonymous in that situation.
Well, that's a pretty impressive list of responsibilities. I know insurance is essential to managing risks, and that many of our listeners may have questions about disability insurance or long-term care insurance. Could you just take a moment to shed some light on these types of coverage?
Sure, I can do that. Let me start with disability insurance. So for most Marylanders that are still working, the income from our jobs is critical to our standard of living. We're working to be able to support ourselves. We use that income for rent, we use it for mortgage payments, utilities, groceries, etc., many expenses. What short-term and long-term disability insurance protection does is it offers you protection for lost wages in situations where you get sick or you're injured and you cannot work. Most disability policies don't cover 100% of lost income. They cover a lower percentage, maybe 60, 80%. It provides that help with those expenses while you are unable to work. And a lot of people think of severe injuries or a catastrophic health condition as the leading cause of disability, right? And so, we know that statistically we're not super likely to have a severe disability, et cetera. But the truth is most disabilities where people cannot work are less severe injuries and more common conditions, such as heart disease, back pain, arthritis, mental health conditions, and digestive disorders. Something, that might only last a few months or it might last a year, et cetera. But people do need to consider that it's not just those catastrophic situations that put you in a situation where you cannot work, but, some of the smaller issues as well. So short-term and long-term disability insurance, it provides that partial income replacement. With regards to short-term usually lasts 6 months, and then the long-term would pick up after that. They are two separate products. Short-term disability, some people who have an emergency savings, I know a lot of people save 3 months, 4 months, 6 months of expenses. It's, there's a lot of financial advice saying it's a good idea to set aside those 6 months in case something like this happens. Somebody like that, they might be able to be okay without short-term disability because short-term disability is usually going to last that first 6 months. But after that, that's when long-term disability policies kick in. So you really need to consider, your saving situation. Are you willing to spend that money that you've saved if you're out of work for 3 or 6 months, et cetera, when considering whether to purchase these policies. So short term, it's going to help you immediately after an accident or illness. And then the long term disability picks up usually at 6 months. And then that can last for years. It is important to know that disability insurance benefit plans can vary widely. It is super important that you read and that you understand the policy that you're purchasing with disability insurance. So I guess with that, I will pivot to long-term care insurance. With long-term care insurance, individuals with a prolonged illness, a disability, or a cognitive condition, such as, for example, Alzheimer's disease, often need help with daily activities of living. Those activities of living are, dressing, bathing, eating, as well as they may need skilled medical attention. So long-term care services include care management, rehab services, includes adult daycare, hospice. And the reality of the situation is that Medicare and the Medicare products pay very little toward long-term care. There's minimal help from Medicare and the Medicare products for that. So a lot of people consider purchasing a long-term care insurance policy. You can also purchase a long-term care insurance rider with certain life insurance policies and certain annuity contracts. It's important to know that you should consider this policy while you're in your 40s and 50s. By the time you're in your 60s, in many situations, it can be too late to be approved for a policy. The exact terms and the condition of the coverage, it's going to depend on your individual policy. Long-term care insurance generally covers services such as nursing home stays for custodial care, immediate care, or skilled nursing care. These policies also cover home health care. They cover adult daycare. And again, they can be purchased as an individual policy, like you just are purchasing a long-term care insurance policy, or it can also be a rider to a life insurance policy or an annuity contract. It's a lot. It's a lot to understand, and it's a lot to learn. And I highly recommend, if you want to understand long-term care insurance, we have a lot of information on our website, insurance.maryland.gov. But there's this document called A Shopper's Guide to Long-Term Care Insurance. So A Shopper's Guide to Long-Term Care Insurance, if you want to Google it. It's produced by the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. And I think it's the best read for just really understanding not only what the product is, not only what long-term care insurance is, but does it make sense for me? Because it's definitely not a product that makes sense for everyone. Without a doubt, it is a relatively expensive insurance product. And then one other thing, since we're talking about seniors and folks with disabilities, I want to say that the Maryland Insurance Administration also regulates the Medicare supplement, but we don't fully regulate Medicare Advantage and the Medicare Part D products. So if you have questions about the Medicare supplement, you can always reach out to us. And those other Medicare related questions in Anne Arundel County, I definitely say SHIP. That is your one-stop shop for almost everything else related to Medicare.
Wow, that's a lot of really valuable information. And I'm sure that our listeners could have a lot of questions about eligibility, about the benefits of these types of insurance. So just quickly, could you re-clarify who should consider disability insurance and who should consider long-term care insurance?
Yep, I'll do that. Okay, so if you're working and you're depending on your income, then you need to consider short-term and long-term disability, okay? Also, though, take a step and think about your savings. Think about what you would be willing to spend in a situation where you had a short-term disability. So think about all of that and see where you fit in. Talk to your HR. It's very, very likely that you can get at least short-term disability and oftentimes long-term disability as a group policy through work. And, you might already have it. Great. So go there first before, you start shopping around, because it's pretty likely that the best deal that you're going to get is going to be through work if it's offered through work. As for long-term care insurance, again, if you're in your 40s or 50s, now's the time to start thinking about whether or not it makes sense for you. It does not make sense for everyone. Does it make sense for you? And just remember, it can be difficult, but not impossible to qualify for a policy in your 60s or later.
Well, that's excellent advice. I know it's clear that you've made it really clear that making informed decisions when it comes to insurance is absolutely crucial. If our listeners have any questions or need any assistance, can they reach out to the Maryland Insurance Administration?
Of course, yes. You can always email me. It's patricia.dorn@maryland.gov. Dorn is spelled DORN. And you can call our 800 number. It's 1-800-492-6116, 1-800-492-6116.
And lastly, could you tell us tell our listeners what you would like their one thing to take away from our talk today to be?
Sure. All right. This is what I would say. You're not alone out there, and it's not just you versus the insurance company. I know dealing with an insurance company can be intimidating. You can always contact the Maryland Insurance Administration for assistance. We all procrastinate sometimes, but with insurance issues, please don't procrastinate. Give us a call. You have a Maryland state agency that you can call for help.
Well, Patty, thank you so much for coming on the show today to help our listeners stay informed about their insurance options.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me today.
If you have any questions about today's show, or if you'd like to learn more about any of our programs, please feel free to contact the Department of Aging and Disabilities at 410-222-4257 or visit us online. We also encourage everyone to register for our Senior Activity Center programming, which can be found on our website, aacounty.org/senior-center. Please remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AACO-DOAD and on our YouTube channel at Arundel Seniors. You can catch Senior Scene first, only on 1430 WNAV. But remember to tune into full episodes on our YouTube channel at Arundel Seniors on Thursdays at 10 a.m. This has been Joshua Killian, social media producer with the Anne Arundel County Department of Age and Disabilities, and you've been listening to Senior Scene on your hometown station, 1430 WNAV.